Hello, my name is Dr. Jessica Rowland Williams, Senior Director of Client Service Delivery here at the National Institute for Student Success. Welcome to Partnership in Practice, a series dedicated to amplifying our clients' voices as they navigate the phases of implementation. Our goal is to foster an online community where ideas are shared, supported, and celebrated. Today, we're excited to feature my colleague and friend, Dr. Timothy Hatchett from the Fort Valley State University, Fort Valley State University. Fort Valley State University was recently honored with our inaugural NISS Catalyst Award, recognizing the impactful work that's being done at his institution. Welcome, Dr. Hatchett.
Thank you so much. I'm truly delighted to be here and to have this conversation.
I'm delighted as well. So after working with the NIST over the last 2 years, your institution went through the diagnostic and playbook process, and then you moved into implementation. What has that been like on campus, and how has the buy-in process been like?
It has been very fast paced. It has been a lot of work, a heavy lift. And I'm very grateful that my team bought in very quickly because a lot of what we talked about throughout the process and especially discovery of what we needed to do were things we were already planning. So that was a good thing that we had the support of an outside eye that said, hey, let's focus on, or let's look at some of these particular objectives. And it just kind of aligned what we were already working on. I would say overall, we're about a 75% buy-in. I think the hardest thing for most people is change. While faculty, are slow to change, they've bought in, and we're even working in phase 2 to support our faculty. We're creating and beginning to hire our retention specialists. They'll be assigned to all of the colleges to work on retention measures to allow faculty more time to teach, more time for research, and to kind of shift some of that responsibility back to my team to say, hey, we're working with the faculty on retention measures for our upperclassmen, those juniors and seniors, to make sure we get them across the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for talking about that. Faculty buy-in is something that comes up a lot as we work with our various institutions. And so one thing that we've learned is also, when you begin to get some of that early data, it can really help that process as well. Now, Fort Valley State University is a part of an HBCU cohort that is focusing on first-year support. So what has that experience been like, and what have you learned from the other HBCUs in the cohort?
Wow. Fortunately, within our cohort, the 3 HBCUs in the state of Georgia, Savannah State, as well as Albany State, we had pre-existing relationships. And so what this actually did was kind of bring us together to talk a little bit deeper about processes, how we've been able to do specific things. Example, I know Albany was already planning or had planned or even done a academy, so to speak, for summer. And so it allowed us to kind of hear from them. What are some of the do's and don'ts? What are some of the feedbacks that we can get? So it allowed us to even deepen our relationships and to talk more about strategy, process, and procedures. It was a great opportunity to work across the lines and to be able to just have someone, hey, what did you do when you got to this particular step? Or how did you overcome this barrier? Well, we're thinking about doing this. Can you give us some feedback? So it was great to have those relationships and identified persons that you can just pick up the phone and actually call. My team was able to meet with Albany State in specifically to have those conversations and say, hey, I know someone that I can call, pick up the phone and call and ask questions. So it was really, really good. It really cemented the HBCU camaraderie, less rivalry, more camaraderie that we actually have. And it was wonderful for that benefit.
Absolutely, yes. And now you mentioned Summer Success Academy is something that you all were working on, and you got some support you mentioned from Albany State in those cohort meetings. And you yourself, your institution found a lot of success in your pilot year of implementing the Summer Success Academy. Can you talk to us about some of the pieces that led to the initial success of that program?
I think one of the first things that we actually did as a team, we all came to the table and said, what is it that we're going to do? And I think the buy-in from the team and then strategically planning. Once we received the funding and we were given the playbook, we were like, okay, some of the stuff we knew that we were going to do is just sped up our timeline to get done. Sure. And I think having a phenomenal first and second year experience director, Ms. Shalisha Williams, she took the program by the by the horns and says, I got this. And we knew that we were trying our best to get as many students in our first quarter as 50 as possible. And we were strategic. We worked fast because of the timeline. And I think the biggest piece was everybody was committed to making sure that the program was a success. And we are I'm a leader that's very intentional about we receive funds. We need to be good stewards of the funds. We need to make sure that we adhere to the deadlines, guidelines. And so we're able to make sure that, if there's an opportunity for continuation or any support, let's make sure we do our part. So if those come available, we're able to benefit from that. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest piece was the strategic planning and laying out an outline of what we needed to do and making sure all of the persons knew what their roles were and we were able to execute effectively.
Yeah, and it's so important that you mentioned that, because what we found with institutions is, to your point, a lot of institutions kind of know what they need to do, right? Yeah, institutions are filled with super smart student success, practitioners like yourself who've been in this field a long time, but it's the details, it's the how, and it's also that accountability, right? Because sometimes some of these big projects that you want to implement just get lost in the timeline, and there's a million things going on, and they just kind of fall to the next semester and next semester. And so I'm really happy to hear that one of the things that NISS has supported you in is just making sure that you're following through on some of the things that were already. Yeah. Now, you mentioned, we talked a little bit about the success, and you all have had tremendous success with this program. But of course, every project, doesn't always go as planned, right?
Oh, yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that Fort Valley faced when setting up that Summer Success Academy for that first summer.
In the initial academy, I think our recruitment goal was 50. And I think we settled in between 20, 25. I think it was 25 was the number that we were able to actually bring in. And so that was one of the challenges was making sure that the students we brought in, one, were supported, but two, were able to pay for that semester, that summer session, and educating the parents on what that looks like.
Sure.
Because I think we identified about 300 students that would have qualified for the program. But it was getting them to understand. And then I think the biggest piece was they heard we stipend the students with a $500 stipend for this initial year. So hearing that, they were like, oh, they were excited, but it was like, well, it doesn't cover the semester.
Right.
And so we were trying to get them to understand, what does it look like? How do we go about getting it done? And I think that in itself was the first major challenge. The second major challenge was getting students here to understand that, working with us, that this is this is the first iteration of this Summer Success Academy. We've done it a while back, from my understanding, it's something we've done historically, but we haven't had it in a long time. So it was reimagining something new. Again, it's that a change in getting people to adapt to what's new, and then making sure that we hit the benchmarks and guidelines. I think the biggest piece was just the recruitment piece was initially, and then also was the recruitment of faculty, because they didn't understand what's different from this than summer school.
Yes.
How does this make this then different than what we're doing for summer school? Because we put a caveat that if you taught in academy, you couldn't teach in summer school. And we offset that with the increased pay rate that we offered for academy, because what we really wanted was whomever was teaching in academy would be dedicated to that pot of students. That cohort would be where that foundation lies, so that faculty could have that relationship with those students. And so I think that was the other thing, was getting them to understand, we're not trying to penalize you. We want to make sure that these students that are coming in understand, what they're getting into, and you're dedicated to them, and it's just not another class.
Yeah. You hit on something that we hear all the time that I just wanted to elevate, and that was the idea of, we've done this before, right? We tried this before. We did this back then. It didn't work, and we know that's a reality a lot of institutions face, because, innovation fatigue is a real thing, right? Institutions have been trying things for a long time. And so I think it's really interesting how you were able to take that, and hear that, but also, get your faculty and your staff to say, let's take another look, right? Because maybe what we're doing isn't exactly like what we did before. We have different support, we have different insights, we have different plans, we're getting supported a little bit differently. Let's give this another chance. Yes, it may have been called the same thing, yeah, right. but we've got maybe a little bit more information this time. And so I really appreciate that. Now, Fort Valley State University we've been hearing a lot about Fort Valley lately. And so what are some of the other wins that you want to share, things that you've accomplished in the last 2 years regarding to student success?
Well, I'll start with enrollment. Enrollment for the institution has grown. I think this year we've seen the highest enrollment growth in almost a decade. Um, uh, Fort Valley we're topping out at almost roughly little shy of 3,000 students.
Wow.
Um, we've experienced some strong growth in enrollment, but we've also had some strong growth in retention. Our retention jumped 6%, and we've increased retention again this fall. So we've had some great gains, and it's all about being strategic about how we support the students, as well as support and engage them in and out of the classroom. And I think that's what's part of driving our success in the fact that we consider ourselves a small institution. And I know every HBCU says this, but we're that family feel. You're just not a student here. We want to make sure that you know us.
Yeah.
It's the engagement and those opportunities to actually meet with those students and see them in transition and pass. And I call it it's called street advising. Hey, how did you do in passing? How did you do on this? Or did you
Mhm.
follow it with those types of engagements to mean more to the students than just a formal setting? And I think a lot of those small strategic wins have really what have impacted the institution to be where we are in its growth. And then I have to commend my leader. Dr. Jones is a phenomenal leader who allows me and provides me with the flexibility to lead and to be as innovative and as creative as we can to make sure we succeed and we excel as an institution.
Yeah. Well, I just want to highlight that in a time where we're hearing so many institutions are facing enrollment declines, that it really is remarkable and a testament to your hard work and Dr. Jones, Vice
Thank
President
you.
Jones' leadership that you're seeing, record enrollment
Yeah.
rates levels at this time. And I will say, when it comes to that family feel, we had the opportunity, NISS team had the opportunity
Yes.
to go and visit Fort Valley State University, and we certainly got a feel of that family. You all definitely welcomed us with open arms, and we appreciate that. So as we wrap up this conversation, what are you looking forward to when it comes to the future of student success at Fort Valley, and even the continuation of the Summer Success Academy program?
I'm very excited about what we have planned to go into this next year of the grant. But I'm really excited about what we've put in place to wrap around our students in terms of services, supports, and engagement. I think it's an opportunity to again to impact and grow our retention, because we've thought about supports from the front end as well as to the back to make sure that they have that full wraparound. And we're excited about our continued partnership and relationship with the NISS team. I can truly say it's been a phenomenal relationship, very engaging, very supportive. And I'd say this all the time that because I'm so busy, and I tell you, and I think I said this enough, Jessica, just remind me, sending me another email doesn't bother me. Just let me know what it is you need me to do or remind me. But I think that engagement and relationship we've been able to develop between the institution, even myself and you and your team, has been phenomenal and instrumental in making sure that we are successful, because the monitoring that keeps us on track, the engagement that makes sure we're following, the opportunities for feedback, and more importantly, collaboration with our peers. I think those are the things I'm looking forward the most as we continue um, in this process and we continue to develop what we're here for, which is our students and to grow our institutions. I'm grateful for the NIST. I'm grateful for the opportunity and just to be able to say I'm a part of the NIST cohort. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Let's end it there. Thank you, Dr. Hatchett, for joining me on in this conversation on Partnership in Practice. And thank you to all of you for watching this episode of Partnership in Practice with Fort Valley State University. All right. Bye.
All right. Thank you.